I wasn't trained anywhere. Um, I did a music degree in Cambridge, which involved no performing whatsoever. After that, I did a PhD and in musicology, historical, analytical sort of stuff. And it was about the influence of Scriabin on Russian modernism in the 1910s and 20s. So composers like Samuel Feinberg, who you probably might know about as a Bach pianist. Um, However, when I first went to Cambridge, aged 18, I had just in the September before I went up, which was like the month before, I'd done a concert in London, which was my first concert in London, my first actual real concert, I suppose. And I played the seventh and tenth sonatas of Scriabin, and this wonderful piece called English Country Tunes by Michael Finnessy, um, who was a composer who very much interested me in those days and actually still does. And curiously, I discovered that no one apart from Michael had played this piece in those days because well, it's a bit tricky and stuff. But anyway, I was this 18-year-old like boy uh, doing these bonkers concerts, and around that time there was this great Scotsman called James Clapperton who was also playing similar repertoire. And it's quite funny because the only people playing like Finnessy and Ferneyhones and Arcus on the piano in those days in the UK were teenagers, which is makes you think, doesn't it? So that's my background. Just before I had gone to Cambridge in the year before, I'd had a few lessons from Dennis Matthews, which were like really uh, sort of revolutionary for me, if that's the right word. Because you know, you come from like school and have piano lessons there, and it's fine. And then suddenly you hear Dennis Matthews tell you stuff. It's like Old Testament prophet or something. It was just like, whoa. And it just opened this huge vista of understanding music in a whole new number of levels. And I had a few lessons with him, but not many. And I think basically I had to do my A levels and stuff that were in Russian and French. So I had to do a bit of studying. So the piano lessons sort of drifted off a bit. And then Dennis died, and it was all a bit sad. And yeah, so yeah, that's my background. I mean, that's my training. When I was at Cambridge, I still have a friend called Nick Hodges, and he was the other person in the year who was like really um, sort of into, say, not only new music, but like a person with whom you could have a conversation about Berg or Bruckner or whatever. Or, you know, he was just sort of like clued up. And after he left Cambridge, he found Sulamita somehow. Then one day I remember getting this postcard from him. It says, I'm now having lessons with Sulamita Aronofsky. Maybe you should. And for ages I didn't react. And I think my wife would recognize this characteristic quite well. It takes me quite a while to react to things she has asked me to do. And by the end of the 90s, I got in touch with Sulamita. And I was then almost 30. So I completely missed that like important time in pianist's life when they are at conservatoire and do competitions and stuff. But I had just been doing completely different other stuff during that period. I started when I was about 7. I had the local village organist as my teacher. But he was actually quite an organist who could play like Messiaen and the list ad nos ad salutarum undam, and he was not fucking about. And then I went to school and had another teacher called Peter Smith, who was he was a very interesting guy, but somehow he was not like. I think I need the kind of rod of iron because I am naturally very just like I just do what I like. I just uh, I was in this funny situation where these like famous private schools in England need to have music scholars in order to keep their charitable status. My parents regarded their son as some kind of subject for sociological experiment. And as such, I got first a call scholarship to one of these choirs in Oxford. So I was in the Magdalen choir with Bernard Rose. That was very interesting. He was a very interesting guy. And then I got a music scholarship to Eton, and I didn't get on very well there because, well, for a lot of reasons actually, but I would not take their crap, and I think I was meant to, but I wouldn't. However, it was in some ways quite an interesting place to be. There was a very good record library that was run and maintained by the college organist, who was a man called Alistair Sampson, who recorded all the Vienne organ symphonies and stuff for LP in the 70s. And, was a very accomplished performer. And so there were a few people around who would make it tolerable. And they would single people like me out and saying, "You are working class scum. What are you doing in our school?"
Right.
Pretty
So
much.
this is an interesting aside
Yeah.
because essentially you the way that you are mentioning these places of privilege, if you're not making this commentary, it just says that you come from a very elitist, privileged background. But
Ah,
you
no.
were
My grandparents were railway labourers and in the merchant navy from Liverpool Irish stock.
right, right.
So yes, it's actually, there's a bit of a paradox there, which is interesting, but hasn't always been comfortable. And I would say, fuck that. I'm going to go and play Alcon or something. And I would sight read through the entire Opus 39 or something on an old Bechstein, or, or play Fantasia Contrapuntistica or something. Because that's what I thought it was interesting. And I quite like they had orchestral scores and you could get them out and put them on the piano and try and play like Mahler 7 on the piano. By the time I made some sort of quantum leap around the age of 13, and I went from being a sort of child pianist into a child who could play adult pieces quite badly. So yeah, I used to just go and play the piano and get through loads of repertoire because it was a nice thing to do, and nobody could bother me there. Because you see, I never really had any money. And at one point, I did a deal with her. And I wrote her a check for 1,000 quid. And we had a kind of deal that was apparently for like 10 lessons, because her usual rate was 130. But then the lessons just went on for some years, and she never asked for any more money. But I did do an awful lot of concerto accompaniment. You know, it wasn't very regular, but I just said, sometimes I've got this. I'm usually, if I was playing something quite standard repertoire, I would want to play it to her and get a complete bollocking and then go away and think about it. And actually, when I played Sorabji Opus Clavicembalisticum in the Purcell room, I took it to Sulamita. And she was very helpful.
You know
And I
what?
had a chat about this with Yonti Solomon, who actually was almost her neighbor and lived sort of not all that far away. And he was very fascinated by, he kept asking me what Sulamita had to say about this. And he was like really interested because they knew each other. So that was quite interesting. Modern British repertoire. Yeah, so actually, that was it, I think. Well, you know, one of the reasons I went to her and one of the reasons I found her very useful is that part of my activity as a pianist has been quite specifically playing music of very early and late 19th, very early 20th, late 19th century of Russia. And given her teachers, I thought she would be the best person to go to should I want to really try and absorb some of the performance practice of this specific repertoire. And you see, it tied in to my PhD because this was about Scriabin and his influence in the era that immediately went after him. And I think I first went to her because I was recording this pianist sonata by Alexander Krien, or Krein, as it's written. And actually, Golden Visa actually played this piece, even though it was written for Neuhaus. And Yelena Beckman-Sherbina also played it. She's of the same vintage. And I was going to make the first recording of this piece. Well, I actually did for Largo when I was still in my 20s. And it was then I took up Nick Hodges' advice, go to Solomita, she'll sort you out. There was baptism of fire. I mean, it was like, you know, playing piano is like a whole lot more complicated than I ever realized. And so, you know, I got on the case and I made this recording. I now don't think it's all that good, but it's not actually bad. It's just like, you know, I do it these days. And then I took to her lots of Scriabin and Rachmaninoff and Metner and Feinberg, etc., etc. So in a way, I went to her with a kind of specific interest in mind and a rather detailed motivation. If you can you see it? Klasje Golden Wieser.
Golden
In
Visor.
Golden Wieser's class.
Ah, really?
And what was revelatory when I picked up this book in a second-hand Moscow bookstore was that it contained exactly the same advice, even down to the micro timing of when you play a certain note and what volume it ought to be compared to the preceding one, that had been given to me by Sulamita about the Scriabin fantasy. which is a piece I took to her very early on, and which was a piece that Gonviesa gave the world premiere of, because Scriabin somehow couldn't be asked to learn it. And it was premiered long after he'd written it in 1908. And I was like gobsmacked as to the specific repetition and passing on of such, incredibly detailed advice. And then there I was, and it was like 2002. It was like almost 100 years after this chap had given the world premiere of this piece. I was receiving the same advice in London. I cannot deny the immediacy of these coincidences that are not coincidences. That was actually somebody passing on their knowledge that they got from someone else. And I got the book to prove it. I mean, clear philosophy of teaching, yes, you do what I tell you to. Advice concerning solving of technical problems. She didn't analyze scores with us, but she always had a solution for technical problems, absolutely always, without a doubt. Legato, very important. Octaves, I think I could always play octaves. Memorization. Once I was playing a piece from the music, and she kept taking the music away, seeing how far I could do. But like, it's not a big deal. Technician was my. Oh no. To what do you agree there? Follow a view of the score approach to practicing. I've no idea what the approach to practicing was. She just says you've got a lot of work to do, Jonathan. Because she was a controller with these young guys. And she realized she was not going to be doing this with me. But also there was no point because I would not follow her kind of plan of competitions and conservatoire and all of that. So actually it was not in anybody's interest to try and fit me into that pattern.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So schools and tradition. Do I identify as player with a particular school? I do a bit with this Russian school because I just hear some of these old recordings and I think, yeah, that is what piano playing sounds like. But then I hear these pianists, and it sounds all very sort of milky and a bit like, are you actually there or shall I call the doctor or something? You know what I mean? And I need something a bit more kind of. And then, yes, do I believe in the British school? They can be, I mean, they can be a bit like underdone and pallid. And I sometimes think they need a bit of a rocket up their arse, basically, because it's just a bit like kind of, it's sort of okay, but not good enough. But then you get these ones like Ogden who can play, and it's on fire. The exceptions just mean that there's no rule, you know. Maybe Britain's most famous pianists were not very typically British, actually, or at least half of them or so. But I mean, who was that great Scotsman who played Metna? Amish, Milne. You see, he didn't sound very British, did he? No, it's been interesting because I don't usually think about this sort of stuff, and yet I play the piano all the time. In my 20s, I spent a lot of time doing composing, and also musicology. So I I have a bit of sympathy with these people, and um, I think that when they write something, it's for a good reason. I would therefore question the validity of the interpretation if you have to completely contradict the composer in order to make it logical. It means
Uh,
there is something missing. If somebody has marked the section piano, but I, because my ego is so big, I need to play it mezzo forte, I would say there's something problematic in my understanding of this piece. Usually I would play a piano section mezzo forte because I'm like not playing piano very well. But that's a separate question. Um,
yeah.
Dennis was very, I mean, it was almost like getting a kind of analysis of the piece, but it was analysis completely tied into how you can carry this out and make it real into a piece of music. It was wonderful. I took him Beethoven 111, and he not only told me how the piece went and how it was made, but also how to play it, almost as though he had written it. Because I mean, he knew it pretty well, and he had this kind of mind. Um, I never took the same piece to Sunamita, so actually a direct comparison is not possible. But I mean, I didn't find their approach so different actually. Although Dennis was a bit more kind of analytical, and Sunamita a bit more about sort of sound production and stuff. But we did that with Dennis as well, actually.
I
Yeah, I mean, basically, I became a pianist by mistake. I mean, there was no big plan or.
I'm going to disagree with you. You seem like you're having a wonderful time and wonderful experiences. You've played everywhere. You're doing really well. It's
No,
wonderful.
thank you, but uh, just before you wrote to me, I mean, no, just before we had our talk,
Yeah.
Hugh Shrapnel wrote to me,
Ah, what
which
about?
was a very nice coincidence. And how did you get to know Hugh's music? No, no, you've disappeared.
I know I did. You can hear me now.
Yeah, I can,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Okay, we're back.
And
Hugh,
John Lewis.
they are wonderful.
I've known these guys for years.
Have you now? Did you did,
Yeah,
you listen to the CD then? The duet?
yes,
Have
it
you?
was wonderful.
Thank you very much.
I've even played one of Hugh's pieces
Oh,
because
he's great.
he wrote a piece for John White,
Yeah.
and for some reason he couldn't show up. So I just got this phone call and said, "Can you play Hugh's piece?" I said, "Well, it depends how hard it is." So,
Yes, yes. Oh, he's wonderful, isn't he? But they both are.
how did
Uh,
you get to know these people?
Cornelius Cardew Concerts Trust.
Oh, right, yeah, Scratch Orchestra.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They are all the veterans of the Scratch Orchestra, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
John White. I've been making loads of new editions of John's sonatas. I did about 30. This week has been my hardest week in the lockdown. I've just been like in a trough. But the week before, I did something like 30 new editions of John's sonatas and learned them. And um, and Dave Smith as well. What a
Yeah, yeah.
guy! So you know all these people. I think I have met you. You see, at one of these concerts or events where these guys hang out.
Really?
Yeah, were you at? Were you at the John White 70th birthday at Wilton's Music Hall?
No.
No. Okay. Anyway, yes,
Someplace.
and Chris Hobbs,
No.
you must know. Do you know Chris Hobbs?
I don't think so.
He's
How about
another of these. He's another of these guys. Now, if you do piano duets with your husband, you should get hold of John White's duets.
oh
Do you have them?
no? Do you have them?
No, you should. No, I do. I typeset some of them. There's an early set from the 70s, and then a later set from maybe the 80s or 90s when he wanted to sit in close proximity to Sarah Walker.
That's why we know Sarah Walker too.
Such is John White. Yes.
Okay. Noted.
Uh, so I will send you the set that I typeset. I played a few of them with my wife at a John White 75th birthday that was at the Red Hedgehog in Highgate.
I haven't played at the Red Hedgehog, but I know the venue.
Oh no, it's shocking. Don't. It's awful.
Were you at the 75th? I think it was 75th or 70th. Carol Finer's birthday.
No.
Oh, you missed that one. I was
No.
sat next
Well,
to
you see, I don't
somebody.
live in England. Did you go to the Howard Skempton 70th
No, I missed that one.
at King's Place? Oh well, because I played a new sonata by John White there.
Wait,
That is number 179, and it's called Howard Skempton's Special Agent. I have it here. Because it's based on the theme music from a 1950s, 60s British radio program called Dick Barton's Special Agent that was very famous. But John has turned it into Howard Skempton's Special Agent. It's quite good.
How about the Cecil Sharp climate change something or another?
Oh, no, I didn't hear that. Very good. John White.
Excellent.
So hopefully I will keep doing this and present him with an almost complete edition on his 85th birthday
When's that?
in 2 months' time.
It's coming.
So. Good. I must go and eat something.
Yeah, same here. Thank you very much for everything, for your time. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Interesting, because I mean, these are things, I mean, I don't actually think about very much. So, it's very interesting. And let me know how it goes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Bye.